Hi everybody!
Nihon Falcom shareholder meeting is always an exciting time if you enjoy the company. However, this year it was a bit different. Clearly, there was an air of sadness to a degree thanks to the passing of the founder Masayuki Kato at the age of 78. However, Falcom fans should be jubilant in their celebrations, especially if you're a Western fan. We got some more news on the Trails in the Sky remake. What's this I see? Is that a release window? Of course it is. You know what else I see? Platforms. Multiple fucking platforms. Now this next statement goes out to all those who doubted me. Now I hope you're sitting there as uncomfortable as you possibly can be, because you should be ashamed of yourselves. I have lots to get off my chest. A lot of you stated I was doing this to be an attention-seeking clout chaser. Use your brains for a moment. If I was an attention-seeking douchebag, don't you think I'd maybe go after a series that isn't super obscure and a more mainstream audience actually enjoys? It's like you lot are with the Sly Cooper gang, who down drinks of nihilism like an alcoholic spending their kids' college funds just to get one more swig of cheap booze sold by Sergey on the street corner. I know my longtime fans will remember, but for the people in the back, who will probably have changed their tunes by now, saying they always believe me. When was it that I first started giving information on the Sky remakes? Oh yeah, late January of this year. I was going off a mix of intuition and things I'd heard. But look at when the Sky remake was first announced, at a Nintendo Direct in late August. As far back as January, I had people calling me a certain ableist term, along with other vile things. Sure, I might be a small content creator, but I was a journalist first. I drink coffee, and I know things. At the time it was announced, the only confirmed platform was the Nintendo Switch, which, okay, that makes sense, since it's one of the best-selling consoles of all fucking time. So of course Falcom is going to release it there, even if it's a vastly compromised and inferior version. They're in this business for one thing primarily, that's to make money. They just go about it by servicing a segment of gamers who have been so starved for attention, they're happy with anything they get. It was getting to the point this style of game was as touch-starved as a crazy cat lady living in the forest. Hell, until Persona 5, people were saying turn-based games were dead. But here we are. We finally have confirmation of what I said previously. The Sky remakes were always going to be multi-platform. Is it as many platforms as I was initially told it was going to be? Nope. I'd heard it was going to be on PS4 as well, and that PC would come down the line. But it's Switch, PS5, and PC. Are you numbskulls keeping up? Or do I have to slow my speech down to the levels of those mumble rap morons? I'll also admit the information I'd heard about the release getting delayed turned out to be wrong, along with the publisher. We're still getting the game in fall of 2025. And yeah, I was wrong about Xseed being the publisher. See? I can admit when I'm wrong, because I don't have a problem like you pathetic little pissants who've done nothing with your pitiful little lives. Yeah, I collect disability because of physical limitations, but I don't let that limit my potential. I actually work within my constraints, and I'm making something of myself. Maybe next time you uneducated pudding-brained marks will listen to me when I say something. Either way, I'm all gung-ho for this release. For those too slow to keep up, that was my calling out who's publishing this game. So, I'm done complaining for now. Here's a happy part in the middle of this video before we get back into cranky creator mode. Clearly, I'm happy this game is getting a Western release day one with its Japanese release. But that's not why I'm so over the moon about this game. No, that's because of the following reasons. For one, it shows Falcom really does care about getting their games out in the West in a more timely manner than they have been. Before this, we'd have a 2+ year wait, if we were lucky. Now, worldwide releases are just a good thing for overseas fans, because let's face it, Falcom, as great as your games are, this isn't the 2000s anymore, when it was uncommon for Japanese titles to release at the same time. It's like Falcom made a New Year's resolution and they're sticking to it, unlike a lot of people in the comments who will come at me for a lack of integrity. Okay, so that's one of the reasons. Are there any others I'm really excited for this? In fact, there is. I'm excited because it means the liberal arc will finally be accessible to people who aren't glued to their computers 24/7. This in turn makes all of the games playable on modern hardware in the future. Well, Toshihiro Kondo, Falcom's president, has been rather coy. If we're getting remakes for Sky 2nd and 3rd Chapter, it's pretty much going to happen. Remaking just the first game, even if it's meant to celebrate certain milestones in the series, is just a waste of company resources if they have no intention of doing remakes of the other two games in the trilogy, especially with how the first Sky game ends. Because a lot of these new kids just onboarding into the series, what are the chances they're going to go back to the second and third Sky games after experiencing a more polished version of the first game that has been modernized? Chances, I'd say, are slim to none. They're so slim, in fact, they're making Jack Skellington, a literal fucking skeleton, look as chubby as Santa Claus. Plus, look at how Nihon Falcom operates as a business. They reuse assets all of the time. This is partially to save development costs, but it's also a reason why we get so many games from them so quickly. If they didn't do this, their dev times would balloon up to those closer to a AAA release, and no one wants that. So chances are good we're getting the trilogy remade. Hell, I'd even say there's a good chance in a couple of years we have remakes of the Crossbell games. Even though they're finally accessible on modern hardware, we already have decent quality assets for a 3D Crossbell, thanks to the brief time we spent in it during Cold Steel 3 and 4, plus Trails into Reverie. That's also discounting how the new engine is backwards compatible with assets from the Fire engine, which powered the Erebonian arc, meaning we could see the series available on modern hardware and fairly standardized in terms of gameplay mechanics, which can only be a good thing for fans and getting newcomers into the series. Speaking of, there's another positive of this release. Since the Sky Trilogy is the ideal starting point for this series, this release just makes it way easier to get people trying out this franchise, which in turn will make Falcom more money, meaning they can be more bold in their future releases. I might have some ideas on future projects they're working on, but I'm going to wait until I have more information to discuss it publicly. Maybe subscribe if you want to see what nugget of Falcom info I'll drop next. Also, if you're feeling really generous, maybe consider becoming a channel member. That's where I'll post some information videos I have first, plus you'll get early access to most of my content and exclusive videos you'd otherwise never see, because it would either be too niche to be favored in the algorithm, or it'd be a video covering sensitive topics, which is a star door YouTube definitely doesn't want you peeking behind. If you get the reference, you get the reference. And like other Falcom fans, you probably need therapy thanks to it. So with that information out of the way, where does this leave the Trails franchise? What can we expect? And do I have any information as to what's possibly happening? Keep in mind, we're talking about things that are a while away, probably well into the early parts of the 2030s, so this information that I do have is subject to change. And for the sake of transparency, some of what I'm talking about is speculation on my part. But given my track record with Falcom news at this point, coupled with Falcom following a relatively clear pattern for releases, a lot of this information should age relatively gracefully, and I will of course keep people posted on the info I do have in separate videos, along with posts on my social media. So if any of what I say ages poorly, I'll be the first to admit when I'm wrong, because that's what a good journalist does. They dig for the truth, figure out the closest possibility to said truth, then apologize if any disinformation is released. So what's the future for Nihon Falcom? From what my sources have told me, we're definitely getting remakes of Trails in the Sky 2nd and 3rd chapters. Tentatively, I've been told they'll release in 2026 and 27 respectively, though that is subject to change based off how well the first game sells. If it sells well, they'll be prioritized and we'll get them sooner. If it sells to expectations or a bit below that, we'll still get the remakes, but they'll be pushed back, with Ys and Xanadu projects taking center stage for a bit, along with whatever the sequel to Kai no Kiseki ends up being called. Likely that game will release in 2026 for Japan. There's also a high probability Falcom will announce a brand new IP at some point in the near future. I don't have a lot of info to go off of regarding this one at present, but as I hear things, you'll hear about it. But as it stands, Falcom is in a great position to break out of the weird sort of indie, sort of AA position they've always found themselves in. Will they ever be at the same level as a AAA developer? Nope. But here's the thing, Falcom doesn't have to be, and they're pretty much the type of company whose ethos is more what modern gamers are looking for. At this point, we're no longer looking for the most polished AAA experiences. A lot of us are looking for games that are more down and dirty, and sure, they may have a few technical flaws because of their budget, but they aim for an experience that's truly special over slop. But for now, what do you think of the Sky remake being multi-platform? Because remember, I said it first, that it'd be multi-platform at launch.
Tell me when I'm telling lies!
So maybe realize your intellectual superior knows things about the industry you don't.
You're welcome!
Thanks go out to my current channel members, R. Campbell and Danny Boy. This video was made available to my channel members first, so if you want early access to content and exclusive videos, consider hitting the join button or the link in the description. Now check out one of my videos on screen now, and until next time, keep blazing that trail.